Welcome everyone to another installment of AFF CNY's pre-conference interview series. I am Shaman Vizzi. The next two co-presenters will share their firsthand experience and traumas of adoption for both national and transnational adoptees. So let's take a look at what else they will be discussing at their presentation this year. Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm very excited to have co-presenters here today. Angela, and do I say, obviously there's going to be a little accent to it, Teresa? How do you say your name, Teresa, properly?
Teresa, Arana.
Teresa, there you go. What I wanted to start off is simply tell me who you are and how you're connected to adoption or foster care for everyone else to know about. Why don't we start off with Angela?
Sure. My name is Angela Sharp, and I am an artist and also an educator. My specialty is digital storytelling. So a couple years ago, for my master's thesis, I created a project focused on my adoption. I was adopted internationally from Ecuador, but raised in the United States. So the project at first was a telling of my story, where I interviewed my mom who raised me, the woman who ran the orphanage in Ecuador, who was a missionary, and then I met my birth mother in 2006. So I included my interview. I interviewed her. So that was kind of a starting point for me as academic, but also as an adoptee, to really activate my voice. And then eventually share my project with other people. So it's been a self journey, but then also a journey to educate other people. And also through my research, I realized a lot of what I was looking at too in my literary review in school was a lot of these experts, but a lot of them weren't adoptees themselves. So I felt like that was a missing link in information, is actually having the adoptee experience share what they went through and what they are going through.
Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question on that. Why did you feel that this was important to, I always ask, like, the crossover, keeping it close to you versus getting it out there? Why did you feel that was important for you to cross that boundary, is what I guess I'm asking.
For me, it was a story that I just needed to get out, and it was like a healing process. So it's kind of twofold. It was something that just as a creative, I felt like a need to do it and create it. And then, but there was a gap, or a bridge, I should say, when, for example, I went to my first conference in 2015 and presented my work. And then I was terrified. I was terrified of, like, it's very vulnerable sharing a story as private as that. I didn't know how people would respond to it. And two, as a creator, I like to create, but it's different when you're out there and you're actually presenting. So that's been a journey as well. But then actually, after that first time of presenting, sharing my work, and then how people responded, even people who weren't in the adoptee community per se, could relate or understand or had questions, about growing up in a different culture, about being separated from one's birth family. And then it was at that point that I realized too, like, this information is helpful. And also, I know growing up, like, I grew up with a wonderful family that raised me, but conversations like this based around adoption were very difficult in my experience to have. I could tell that it made my family that raised me uncomfortable when I would ask questions. So as an adult too, I was like, how can I have a creative project that could be a gateway for maybe adoptees currently who are younger, maybe have the same challenges? How can art be an entryway to have these difficult conversations in perhaps a safe space?
Awesome. Thank you for that. Teresa, why don't you give us a little bit of information about you?
English is not my first language. Let me know if you need me to repeat something.
Okay, that's fine. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. My name is Teresa Arana. I am Chilean. I am a professional photojournalist. I am working as a photographer and giving photography workshops. In addition, I am adopted and I made a photographic project called Palimpsest 12/26/2012 about the search for my origins that makes documents from the adoption institution in my country, a manuscript of my dad, photograph of my birth family and my adoptive family, a project that seeks an emotional narrative order so that whoever reads it can feel the journey of that search. I found out about my adoption when I was 22 years old, and I didn't know anything about it before. Today, I have investigated and meet other people who were also adopted, like Angela. But what worries me is that the issue only remains in a niche related to the issue. It doesn't go past that. That is why they need to show the project and be able to meet others and do projects together. Because in the end, they start from the same topic and seek a similar goal, which is no longer being a taboo.
I'm going to ask the same question as I did Angela. How did you feel taking this something so personal and then crossing that line of now you're telling everybody it's a big deal? So how does that make you feel?
Or sometimes it's not so easy because you have a lot of emotion, you know, but it feels well because you are telling this to other people. So that makes me feel in peace with that.
Wonderful. So let's see. Well, first, let me ask you, I know you said you guys met, but how did you met? How did you guys meet? I mean, obviously that's pretty far away from each other. How did you, whoever wants to speak first, go for it.
That was in a conference, but maybe Angela can explain better.
Yeah, it was in 2018. I actually presented at my first adoption conference, and I believe Teresa can respond to. I think it was her first adoption conference as well.
Yes, my first one.
So she came with the university from Chile, and I came as an independent academic artist. And so that's how we met in Oakland, California at this adoption conference. And we both were presenting in the same panel. And after watching Teresa's project, I was like, oh my gosh, like our work is so similar. Like she uses her personal family archives and her institutional documents archives to create her photographic and written project. And so after the panel, we ran to each other, we were like talking, and then we quickly, you know, shared info. And then she mentioned that she was going to be in the East Coast. That was her first time in the US.
Yes,
she
I
was
remember that.
Yeah, East Coast in a couple of weeks visiting her some family. And I was like, we should come to New York, come visit me. And we've been friends ever since.
Give us a little bit of what exactly you're going to be sharing with the community during this presentation.
Okay. The expression "estamos llegando a puerto," it means we are arriving at a place, which in this case will be our origins.
Amazing. Angela, do you want to share what kind of things, why you felt that this was an important topic for everyone to hear?
Yeah, so as Teresa was mentioning, you know, so in Spanish, it's we are arriving at a door, I believe, if I'm translating that well. And so
it's
yes.
not in specific, but it's symbolic. It's like a door.
So, you know, when we looked at, even though like I'm a transnational adoptee, Teresa's a national adoptee, born and adopted within Chile. So even though we have differences, there's so many similarities too. So we thought that this was really important to share with people our own stories. Like, for example, I'm also searching and trying to find people from my orphanage to tell their story, but this is a good beginning as artists for both of us, Teresa and I, to share with other people our experiences, and that it's really focused on the archives, both of our works. So for people to come and kind of see what are the origins, where do people start in their adoption journey, and then, like, Teresa has met her birth mother, I've met my birth mother, and so our projects, our visual artist projects, document these experiences. Um, so I think anyone in that adoption triad, even from without the triad or who works with adoptees, can get a first account experience hearing someone's origin stories.
Yeah, Teresa, why don't you tell everybody out there when they watch this why you feel everyone would be benefit to listen to your story? How everybody, like Angela just says, why would you think everyone should come and see you at the presentation in a couple weeks?
Because they can feel the emotion in the narrative, because I don't put the image in order to the visit, similar to my emotion, So when people see it, they can feel the journey of this search of my origins. And maybe they can imagine what happened when it happened, because
one of the words
for me.
One of the words that I like to use is called perspective. It gives everyone an idea of what you went through that they may not have thought of. And I think that's maybe one of the big words that I like to use when it comes to going to conferences and listening to other sections of the triad. I'm an adoptive parent, and I like to hear the voices of an adopted person because it'll help me become a better parent for my child. But you have to be open to listening to stories, and it's hard to tell those stories and cross that boundary, but it's necessary. Someone's got to tell it.
Indeed, you have to know when someone is adopted, it's not a blank paper, so they have background, and that background it's important.
Very true. Angela, would you like to have any last minute things that you'd like to say before we see you in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, just something came to mind when Teresa was talking, was that, like, Teresa's work does an amazing job. I mean, she's a very skilled photojournalist, but like her photos are they're beautiful, but they're also sad, but beautiful. So just thinking about also why these projects, why people should come and see. It's also we as adoptees, we're also activating our own voice, but also we're telling the story of our birth families, and in particular our birth mothers who didn't have agency. Both Teresa and my birth mother both came from poverty. Like, these women were not empowered. These women are not able to tell their stories. Teresa and I were fortunate to grow up with families, and we have education. We're able to use our voices now. So our voices are also in some way our birth mothers' voices who don't have that, or didn't have the agency, and maybe now even it's still hard to tell that story, or we're in a different position to be able to tell these stories than they are.